All right, it's loading up for the group. We've got Michael Trager. If Michael, introduce yourself. You're in London. You are a social butterfly.
I'm really, I don't know. It's a little known secret, but I'm actually an introvert who exhibits extrovert.
See, I think we've got your audio, but we still don't have the video popping through. I wonder what's going on. Are you able to see the video?
I can see the video.
I've just got a blue screen for you on the second half, so something is happening with your camera.
It seems to be on. Can anybody else see it?
Let's see. No, I'm looking at the Facebook feed as well. I'm going to try you on audio only and then kick you back.
It says in stream. You're presented in broadcast.
So we've got you as a blue box. Okay, Aaron, we're gonna bring Aaron in. We're gonna max this thing out. I'm gonna message Aaron, one of my great travel buddies, and see if he can appear. So, and Michael, you stay there. You're going to be the blue box until we figure it out. I can actually I can make the blue box go away, and you can still talk. You're on audio only now.
Let me try. You know what? I'm going to try the link again. Maybe I did something wrong. I'm not sure.
That's if I was an IT staff, that's what I would say.
That's
always the user error.
It says audio only. Video settings. Let's see. It has that camera set.
And I've got you now. All right, and we'll bring Aaron in as well, so I can bring you back in. I can bring you back in. I see the blue glasses, and they will be live in a minute.
That is awesome. So is it working? Is my picture working now?
I think it is. It just takes a few seconds to populate over.
Well, it's because it's coming from London.
That it is, and I have no idea. I don't even know where the servers are, but we've got you live. So tell us. I am not the gaming expert. No. What? Oops, somebody's got to mute that. Aaron's going to mute that, and we've got Aaron from Minnesota. I've got you muted. Okay, you've got your speaker muted, Aaron. I'll bring you back in. Oops. You need to mute the Facebook video now. So just mute the video and then give me a thumbs up. And then I'll unmute you. I can get up to 5 people. So.
Yeah, I have it. I just put it on my mobile.
Okay. Aaron, how you doing there? Have you got that muted? All right. We'll bring Aaron in. All right, he'll be on in 3, 2, 1.
Oh wait, all right. I see myself now.
Yep, and I think I did everything correctly, but yeah, who knows?
And quickly, so that's the there's the Minnesota nice underlying the ruthless Germanic efficiency of getting it on. So Aaron, I think well, Michael, we didn't get a real intro. We kept interrupting your intro, so. Michael, introduce yourself and what you do, and then Aaron, and we'll chat travel points, the travel we want to have, everything.
Sure. So I happen to have a passion project, one of my many passion projects called Travel Zork. And we talk a lot about casino loyalty programs, and gambling and Vegas, except we don't have a lot to talk about with Vegas right now. So that's sort of my passion, especially the casino loyalty part of it. I find extremely compelling, more compelling than travel loyalty because there's more nuance. Mm-hmm. So I just think it's very interesting. And just like you were talking about with the Caesars Diamond program, there's a lot of interesting things you can do. You can even take it to the next level if you want to risk a little bit of money, which is almost a guarantee that you'll be able to parlay that diamond status into comp rooms, especially now that we're going into a period when the offers are going to be super juicy. So you're going to need very little theoretical and very little action to
Okay,
generate.
you've already gone past me. What is theoretical?
Basically, your theoretical is like you know how certain airlines like British Airways have that score, you know, that customer score. I think American Airlines has that too. I forget what American calls
I think it's Eagles. You get 1 to 5 Eagles.
Yes, exactly. So with casinos, you have something which is called your average daily theoretical, your Theo number. That number is what they expect you to lose every day. So it's the theoretical loss that they expect. So literally what casinos rate you on is how much money you're going to lose every day. And they have a theoretical number. And based on that number, they determine what kind of marketing offers they're going to give you. A combination of that and also a combination of actual loss. So you have theoretical loss, which is just the math. You play blackjack, depending on how you play and how they rate you, you know, they know what the theoretical loss is, and based on how much you're betting per hand, per hour, how many hours you're playing, they have a theoretical loss for what you're doing. Same thing with slot machines, and same thing with video poker. And then they weigh that also against your actual loss. But sometimes there are ways to make your actual loss look larger than it should be. And of course, theoretical is still theoretical because you have your standard deviations. You always have your variance, right? I mean, so you can play blackjack and have a really good session and win a whole bunch of money, but you'll still have a theoretical loss based on what you were betting and the time you were playing.
This is how when I try to explain points to people, it's the same. The expression I've got is the same they have when I try to explain this stuff, and I haven't gotten past that. And then when I went to the Caesars counter to collect my diamond card, she looked at that. She clearly saw the zero stat lifetime credits and was saying, "Oh, another one of these hackers from Wyndham are coming over, that getting all the goodies."
Well, it is funny, and I hear that a lot when you talk about it. My biggest problem with miles and points people when you talk about casino loyalty is miles and points people want to be able to do something which gets a guaranteed return.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
You know, they want to know that if I do this promotion or I take these flights or I take advantage of this opportunity, that will yield, you know, doing X will yield Y. And it's guaranteed by the terms and conditions. The thing with casinos is I can usually say to you, if you do this and you play this way on this machine for this much time with this much coin in, I've got about an 80% chance, if you haven't played at that property in 6 months, and I'm making up the scenario, that you probably will get this and this, but I can't guarantee you because it's not based on terms and conditions. So that sort of turns off miles and points people because they're like, but it's not a guarantee. I'm like, no, it's not a guarantee. But you know, you can test things and figure it out pretty closely that the outcome will be decent for the money that's risked. And the second factor is the variance factor. So when somebody says, you know, how much money will I lose? I'll say, well, the theoretical, you know, that's a 99% video poker game. So you should lose, you know, $1 for every 100 you bet. But depending on the denomination and depending on the variance, you could still lose $2,000 in that session, even though it's one, because all those figures are based on the long-term, you know, results of play, just like blackjack is based. You know, blackjack is basically less than 1% house edge. So that means that you should never sit down at blackjack. If you thought about that, you'd think you're not going to sit down at blackjack and lose a whole bunch of money, right? Because it's less than 1% house edge. But depending, and that's true, if you sit down at a $5 blackjack table, which is a good blackjack game, 3-2 blackjack with the right rules, you sit down at a $5 game with $25,000 and you bet 5 a hand, right? I mean, then you're never gonna have a huge variation. But you sit down at a $25 table with $300, you know, could lose that $300 really quickly. So
well, you see how hard it is to get Michael to talk about gambling and that. I feel like I've got to pull it back to the country collecting and travel core of this group. And before we chat with Aaron a little bit, I'm wondering, of the casinos around the world, so setting aside the gaming, the chances, the iconic casinos around the world, the places, you know, like Monte Carlo, these kind of things, what are some as destinations in themselves, even somebody not going to game, Michael, and then Aaron, that you've been to that you think is worthwhile. And I think even Monte Carlo, if either of you know, I think there's something like if you go in as a tourist, you have to pay a fee, but if you go in ostensibly as a gambler, you don't have to pay the fee or something like that.
I was going to let Aaron take this. I haven't been to Monte Carlo, but I did hear that. That you can sign up for the casino in advance, right?
Yeah,
but I'm
definitely not a gambler destination, so this is completely out of my wheelhouse. So go for it, Michael.
So my favorite destination this year was the casinos in Cairo. I thought they were very interesting, and Caesars actually has a franchise in Cairo, much like how the franchises in Macau for MGM have nothing to do with the U.S. program. So I have a Caesars Cairo card, and I actually went with John Morris of Wheelchair Travel, and we had a great time. The main Caesars casino in Cairo is at one of the Four Seasons hotels, and it was super fun. But it was a little bit odd. I'm always looking at things from a perspective of like, what are they doing and why are they doing this? Like the way they dealt their baccarat game wasn't right, made no sense to me. Their limits on blackjack were really low, which made me feel that they didn't know how to protect their games. But it was a very interesting experience. Also, 100%, here's a miles and points part of it, 100% US dollars, and you could use your credit card to get money to play, and you were playing in US dollars, 1% fee on your credit card to play, and you cash and you get US dollars when you cash out. So you could pretty much so manufacture spend if you wanted to, except I guess you might have an issue with how much money you can leave Cairo with. I don't know what the cash rules are leaving Egypt, but you could easily, I think 1% is, and it's a seamless 1%. Literally, they just run your credit card and give you lammers to bring to the table to play with chips. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Fantastic. So Aaron, Egypt, we'll take that as a base to talk about your travels, your travel goals. What are your travel goals first for those that haven't met you?
Well, I think my travel goals this year are to get on a plane at all. So I guess my travel goals and my travel style, I like to travel as cheaply and opportunistically as possible. So the stuff that I'm going to be chasing after is the cheap fares to places that I haven't been to. So if something pops up to Europe for $250, I'll go to Europe. If something pops up to somewhere in Asia for $600, I will go there. And generally, my philosophy on booking travel is look for the cheap airfares and then plan based on that. And I actually just got back from, well, not just, but a couple of weeks ago, I got back from a wonderful trip to Portugal on the KLM special award fares. I think I paid 27,500 flying Blue Miles to fly in business class on KLM from Chicago through Schiphol to Lisbon.
Tell us about those award fares, those that maybe have flying Blue Miles or could transfer to them and have no idea what you just talked about.
Yeah, so I think it's every month KLM releases a couple of special award fairs, and these are usually between some destination and some region. So in the case of last November, they said between Minneapolis and Europe, it's something like 18,000 miles in business class one way, or in 18,000 miles in economy class. Settle down. 18,000 miles in economy class one way, and they also had a promotion where it was 27,500 miles in business class one way. Well, so this worked out really well for me because I live in Minneapolis. It's really easy to get to Chicago.
Taxes and fees would be about what on that award?
The what? Taxes and fees were probably about $100.
Oh, wonderful! Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a really affordable award. I got my little porcelain house from KLM business class.
Did you fly KLM metal from Minneapolis? Because they're flying KLM metal now from Minneapolis.
So I flew from Chicago from Chicago on the way out, and then I flew back on KLM metal from Amsterdam to Minneapolis directly. So yeah, so there is some KLM metal. I flew it both ways, Dreamliner both ways. It was wonderful.
So it was all Dreamliner on both of them.
Yeah, it was all Dreamliner, and but kind of closing out the Flying Blue Miles thread. The thing that I really like about that program is that you can transfer Flying Blue Miles from anywhere. So the person that I went with, she transferred Flying Blue Miles from her Amex membership rewards. I think that I transferred mine from Chase Ultimate Rewards, and yeah, so definitely you can sign up to be notified about these fair deals, and if you like going, I mean, yeah, you should just sign up because KLM miles are easy to transfer into, and you can get some incredible deals.
Yeah, and
the new KLM lounge in Amsterdam.
Go ahead, Michael.
What did you think the new KLM lounge in Amsterdam?
Oh, the new KLM lounge is absolutely brilliant.
I haven't been yet because I was living before I moved to London. I lived in Amsterdam for 3 years, so okay. I haven't been. I was back last year, but I haven't been to the new lounge. But the pictures I've seen, it just looks absolutely.
The pictures do not do it justice. It is amazing. So
it's also a great lounge. I'm assuming it still is, but it's a great lounge because they had a great smoking room, so you could have a cigar before your flight, which I know every casino person's priority. But I'm assuming they still have a pretty nice smoking room.
So I don't know if Lounge 52 has the smoking room anymore, but Lounge 25, which they haven't refurbished, definitely does.
Yeah, it's weird. It's a little weird in Lounge 25, actually. It's sort of like you're in a capsule.
Yeah, and digging into that, Flying Blue is one of the programs that has helped me in getting to every country in the world because they go against the grain in some ways in terms of how they categorize which countries fall into what region. So you've got I think North Africa and Israel are all essentially part of Europe for award chart purposes. I don't think that's changed even with all the changes they made last summer to their pricing. And so you can take some trips that connect those areas that other award programs would put them in different regions that might be a much more expensive ticket. United, for instance, is an incredibly useful program for a lot of their partners, except in terms of trips within Africa, if Turkish Airlines is an option because they categorize Istanbul as part of their Europe region, they end up charging essentially double the price for an Africa to Africa trip via Istanbul. So whereas their partner Ethiopian that stays within the Africa zone, if Turkish is the one you need, then you end up paying double the award price for many of these trips. And I did use them for going to Mogadishu and Djibouti City. That's the specific trip I was using where they were the option, and that award cost quite a bit, but it was still better than the cash prices of trying to put all that together. Aaron, are you trying to get to every country in the world? What are you working on?
The world. I'm just trying to travel as much as possible on as little as possible. So. Yeah. And actually, kind of on that note, one of the things that this whole coronavirus and airlines getting decimated is going to give us, I think, is another 5 to 10 years of crazy cheap international fares. Because I remember after 9/11, the flights to Europe were completely empty, and airlines would just give that stuff away during non-peak hours. So, or non-peak season. So I was able to find stuff. I spent New Year's in Germany a couple of times during that time for $350 round trip, and you could get that stuff pretty consistently. So I imagine stuff like that will come back.
Whatever airlines still exist in a few months.
Well, I just booked for my son. We needed it for May for my daughter's graduation, but I just booked him for Boston to Heathrow round trip with his girlfriend, and the base fare is £1. Yeah. So it's basically the base fare is £1, and it's taxes. So I think it came to $335 return.
And as I understand it, in general times, the past few years, round trips between Europe or UK to the US have generally been cheaper than starting the same trips in the US. And so a lot of people in your shoes that are going back and forth a lot always start their trips in Europe or UK on cash fares. Is that the case?
Yeah, it has been. And I was nesting my kids' trips for a while until it became unwieldy. What I was doing from
To talk
Boston,
about nesting, because I remember hearing like Seth Miller talk about how he's, like
yeah, well, it
nesting
was always hard because it's
and then
like,
he's finally finishing a trip that he can't even remember where he started. And
well, I would use Flying Blue. It was always easy to get Flying Blue awards from Boston to London. Because I've always been under the impression that nobody wants to fly Delta from Boston to London. They pretty much still want to fly British Airways or Virgin. So you could always use Flying Blue. It was usually about, you see, someone rolled their eyes there. In Boston, that's true because with the new British Airways lounge in E, you've got a really good lounge with first dining and boarding from the lounge, and it's definitely the best. And the Virgin Lounge is still in the basement of E. So
we've got a lot of economy class travelers here, so that no one in Michael's world is
well, but economy class
okay.
Travelers.
Okay, so just quickly on that, if somebody, maybe they're not big into points, but I know you find a lot of premium cabin cash fares that may be attractive to some travelers that have been paying cash for economy. Are there, going back 4 months ago, would there be a strategy? What would you be looking at if you were frequently going between US or UK or Europe? If you're looking for either premium economy or business class, what are the price ranges? What are strategies to get the best possible deal?
If you're London based, the best deal is basically targeting World Traveler Plus on British Airways, which is easily upgraded with Avios to Club. So you're looking for World Traveler Plus fares that are good, and maybe you would even fly World Traveler Plus one way, or you would upgrade them using Avios. Usually, upgrading with Avios from World Traveler Plus to Club is somewhere between 20 and 24,000. And
what is the World Traveler Plus cash fare typically run for
you
that?
as low as £600. It's usually 600 to 900 pounds. So that's what I would often target. The other thing was during luxury sales, even from Heathrow. The biggest misconception is, it's true, we've got horrible taxes from departing from Heathrow, but they adjust for that with the base fares. So it is not unusual to get a round trip return during a luxury sale to somewhere in the States from Heathrow for 1,200, 1,300 pounds. So you figure $1,400, $1,500 return in Club, and you can also upgrade Club to business. So I mean the Club to first. So it's not as bad. It's actually really bad using Avios and Premium Awards, because the average, taxes and fees and YQ and all that for a round trip award from Heathrow can be close to $900, and plus all the miles you have to use. So it's absolutely ludicrous to use it. But the cash fares aren't so bad because they earn decent Avios and tier. I mean, part of it is also, in my ecosystem of people, having British Airways status is important, and obviously World Traveler Plus and also Club are going to earn you good tier points. British Airways is still a tier-based program, so there's no spend. So the cheapest you can get your tier, if you can get your 1,500 tier and spend $1,200, they don't care. You'll still be One World Emerald. You'll still get it. Whereas like with American, now you have to do your minimum spend. So that's quite advantageous on British Airways if you can find good fares, and also ex-Europe fares. Like last year I did Amsterdam to Boston there was a sale in April, and I bought for June. Amsterdam to Boston was 900 euros return in Club.
And yeah, so I've heard about that. Only travelers tying in with trips to places like Amsterdam to buy those tickets, connecting through London for big savings. And that made me think about a destination of the kind of group members we have are interested in the Channel Islands. So you've got Jersey, you've got Guernsey, Alderney. I loved Guernsey in particular, and the joke I'll give till everybody won't let me tell it is that you've got you've got British culture and French food, and if you had the reverse, what an awful place it would be. But but
That's
I
pretty
love
good.
it. The only part of the UK that was occupied by the Nazis. There's fascinating World War II history on the island. The island is overrun by dirt bikers, motobikers that have these elaborate competitions and driving around in this just atrocious freezing driving rain that seems to encircle the island all year. I just thought it was fantastic. The town is beautiful. I don't know, Aaron, have you made it out to the Channel Islands yet?
I have not. No.
So what do either of you know? It was something about dropping the luxury fares if you start trips there. The taxes going through London.
Yeah.
There,
Also, Inverness is very
those
common.
that have never heard of that, I don't even fully understand it. If one of our EPS members, because they want to be on the Channel Islands, is there, what is this that they could potentially take advantage of?
Yeah, you see, I don't. The problem when you start. I mean, I know Jersey. The problem with Jersey is those are all Gatwick flights, which make it really. You really have to sort of work out. Off the top of my head, if you're starting there, you have to choose a Gatwick city. Which I mean, I don't know what's going to happen now, but there are a lot of really cool Gatwick to the States cities. I mean, you still have Las Vegas service from Gatwick. You actually have Gatwick and Heathrow, but you have cities like Tampa are Gatwick cities.
So this works that because you're starting the trip there instead of London, you're not paying the full departure taxes?
Yeah, and also London has a luxury tax.
Luxury tax.
Or premium. So there's a difference in the departure taxes, and I'm not expert on this, but it's departure taxes and luxury taxes, and you can avoid it. Edinburgh, Inverness, obviously Dublin, and NX Europe are all ways to eliminate a substantial amount of taxes, and also they tend to have really good promotional fares. Like I think Inverness last year had like round trip to Vegas in first, not club, for like £1,500. Which, and when you consider your tier point earning there, and some people like it. They go to Inverness, they sort of hang out, and then they fly back, and then you get the Concorde room if you're doing T5 departure and stuff like that. So it's pretty good, and you're still earning what would be equivalent to a few $100 worth of Avios if you're coded in first class. So I mean, you're earning decent miles there, and the tier points.
Now, country collectors are getting a window in what it's like to have points junkies in the room together. This is the fun of the format is we can dig in and geek out as much as we like. I think, Aaron, you mentioned you even knew the American Airlines internal scoring system of how they rank you as a customer. I remember at one of our frequent traveler university conferences, I think it was we were at breakfast at a booth, and I think it was either talking about Hilton, I think it was Hilton, maybe Hyatt status and this kind of internal scoring thing, and somebody else we knew had happened to overhear us and reached his head up over the booth and said that in this ranking it was like celebrities are level 6, and ex-presidents are level 7, and extreme complainers like himself are level 8, and he's reached like the don't somehow he's not gotten fired as a customer, but he's also reached like the super level of anything will be handled by corporate to make him happy. And I thought, I don't know if this is an achievement I would be bragging about or aspire to in life. he was happy about, I think, ranking ahead of former U.S. presidents and supposedly in these systems.
Well, sometimes those discussions at the Miles and Points conferences end up being my Eagles is bigger than your Eagles discussion. So, but so on the British Airways thread, so a lot of the American airlines right now are letting you cancel anything that you book in March through the end of their schedule. Is British Airways doing something similar?
Yeah, the only thing that I've been fooling around with are holiday. I book a lot of things through British Airways holidays.
Okay.
Sometimes even putting on a throwaway car, just because if you get the right people in the holidays department, they can release fare buckets that are regularly not available. So if you're buying a ticket for 2 weeks, not in this condition, but like in 2 weeks in the future for New York, regularly the World Traveler Plus fare will be really high, but the holidays people can release the lower buckets and give you the lower fare, but they got to throw on a hotel or a car rental, to do that. But car rentals tend to be relatively inexpensive. So the differential is if you're going to save $700 on your airfare and they add a car rental on, that's $100. It's worthwhile. So what British Airways is doing now for holidays is anything that's booked through the 31st of March for holidays can be changed, no questions asked, without any fees.
Okay.
So say I book a British Airways holiday, like we're looking right now for June, we were thinking of going to Marbella or something. So say I book this June trip to Marbella for the family and it doesn't work out. They'll allow me to just apply that entire trip to doing another trip in December, which I think is pretty good. The other reasons why I like holidays is because it's really good for cash flow, because you only have to put down 100 or 200 a person, and regularly you pay the balance 5 weeks before the trip. But now they've changed that, and you only have to pay the balance 3 weeks before the trip. So basically, you need to decide if you're going to change it before you've made your final payment. But that's really good. But it's also something that's given me an opportunity when there's a really good luxury sale, and I'm like, oh, that's in 10 months from now. I really want to buy that ticket, but it's $1,500. I didn't really want to spend it this month. I can put 150, basically like $170 down, and then I don't have to pay it. Regularly would be till 5 weeks before, but now it's 3 weeks before. So that's really sort of nice. Probably more extreme when you're dealing with families of 3 or 4 or 5 and you're dealing with thousands a person. It's really nice to put down a couple $100s and not have to pay the balance until a couple weeks before, locking in the fare during the fare sale.
So here's what I'm thinking. I mean, if you can get cheaper business class and premium fares from Inverness or from Gatwick, all of these airlines are going to be changing their schedules massively in the next couple of months. And if you can book and have the option to cancel at any time, why not book trips to places that you would want to go and wait for them to change their schedule? And could you change it to the airport that you want, or cancel it and get your money back or get a credit if they don't have a schedule change that allows you to have a little bit more flexibility. Because I'm definitely booking speculative trips all over on Delta, because I will always use Delta credit, and the schedules are going to change. I can go to alternate airports. I can probably do some interesting things with routings if they drop my flight. And there's probably plenty of opportunities to get, could you get that cheap airfare rerouted out of London, Heathrow?
I was just talking to someone about that who had an upcoming trip, and they were saying, would they allow you to drop the Inverness leg or because of, current travel situations. And usually they won't let you do that. But British Airways is pretty good about changing and rearranging if there are different, and you also have the possibility, like what I've done before on British Airways, like when there's, being like a little bit of a geek, where I was booked, I guess I upgraded to first, but I was on a 777, which I don't like that much, and there was a weather issue to Boston, so they set up the waiver and I could change it to 787-9. The next, they let me push it a day, and then I looked immediately while I'm on the phone with the person. I'm like, okay, what are the planes for that day? I'm like, oh, I don't want the 777, I want the 787-9, because I know the first class is much nicer on that plane. And of course, when I went to buy a ticket, that flight time was way more expensive and not on sale, so I got it. So I think you will have a lot of flexibility. And I think the tricky part now is there are going to be a lot of cities that British Airways is not going to serve any longer in the short term. You're talking, I mean, look at all the expansion in the States. I mean, you've got Nashville, right? You've got Charleston, you've got all of these cities that British Airways is serving, and we know they're going to have to draw back on a bunch of those cities, and or at least the number of segments to those cities. I think Boston was up to most days of the week four flights a day with the morning flight. So a lot of this stuff is, I mean, even if your city isn't changed, they're probably just going to keep one or two segments or change the days of the week. I mean, I can see something like, I know Nashville's been incredibly successful for British Airways, but
really?
yeah, I mean, from what I heard, and don't quote me on this, it's someone said it, but Nashville was one of the most successful launches for British Airways of a new city. Like, it became profitable pretty much so faster than any other city.
And that's tourist traffic? That's business traffic? What?
I guess, yeah. I mean, everything. I'm not really sure why, but I could see a lot of those cities either being canceled or going to 2 or 3 days a week for numerous reasons. So I think the speculative. I mean, I think speculative bookings using points is also really fabulous right now because you've got so many premium cabins open, and even
aren't some of these travel waivers not applying to award tickets? I think AA is that way, that it's the cash tickets booked now are fully refundable, but the award tickets are not entirely treated in the same way. I've been dealing with a couple tickets I had with that I was surprised.
The Delta is refunding and redepositing miles for free on award tickets, and because I just did that last week, and I think their waiver explicitly says that now.
Okay.
So
AA is still tough, and United is just changing like every minute, right? And then Frontier is paying people to cancel their flights.
That is an interesting play. What do you think that is about?
The Frontier thing?
Yeah.
I think maybe it's sort of like that Iberia 9,000 free avios for all those Madrid to Santander things last year. They had these empty flights of people that they knew would never take the flight, so they just canceled them off the schedule and gave you back the avios. I think if they can just clear their whole schedule out and just say it's done and we don't have to deal with these people anymore and they're not going to complain, then they can wipe the decks as much as possible. I was actually for Michael in London, one of my small pleasures in life that I enjoy greatly is my salmon colored Financial Times every day. And I was catching up on a few days ago. One of the comment writers was suggesting that the best way in unruly democracies like the US, possibly the UK, to handle the rush that's going into hospitals and all of that is to get airline employees that are furloughed to volunteer to work at medical facilities. They said, who else is more used to dealing with unreasonable, angry, panicked, stressful crowds? And they said, make sure it's voluntary, make sure it's healthy people that check out and they're trained and all that. But you got a lot of talented people that are going to be sitting at home because their primary vocation is shut down and could be tremendously helpful to society and maybe get a paycheck as well if that came together. I thought that was a novel idea that I hadn't seen floated elsewhere.
No, that's very interesting. I mean, two interesting comments. I did a podcast which I dropped today with Gilbert of God Save the Points, talking about game.
Where to find the podcast?
You can find it at Zorkcast. If you type, I think, zorkcast.com, you should find it. Or you can go to the Travel Zork, it's travelzork.com website, and you can find, there's a link to the podcast. And we were talking, I think it was Aer Lingus. If you choose the credit instead, you get an extra 10% instead of the refund. So, a lot of these interesting ideas with gamifying discounts or giving, and I think Virgin's also doing a discount. And we're sort of saying, like, what moves the needle for you? So if I told you, hey, you booked something speculative and you can cancel it and you're going to get cash back, or what would it be if I offered you 30% more? Would you take it in travel voucher instead of cash? 10% more, 40%.
What's the breakage? What's the normal breakage do you think they're gunning for on that kind of thing?
I don't know. I would figure they want to keep it around 10 or 20%, but I think it's interesting. I think they should put like a spin the wheel up, where you I love supreme gamification, but I think Gilbert also said, we didn't talk about this on the podcast, they're also doing a lot of really interesting like upgrade offers for people who've booked for premium seats and other things. Virgin's starting to do that. So I think now, a little different than 9/11, remember we've got upgrade bidding systems. We've got all this kind of, think about all, like, hey, look at upgrade bidding to begin with. Like Virgin has upgrade bidding, but regularly they make you start your bidding for upper class at like what, $400 $500. It's expensive. But now they can open that stuff up, right? They can say, upper class is empty, start the bidding at $100. I mean, so there's all kinds of stuff they can do now, to gamify it and also to drive a little bit extra revenue. So I think we're going to see some really interesting things over the next 6 months. I think it's going to be more interesting. I think we're going to see more interesting things than just discounts. I think there's going to be interesting.
Well, JP from Portugal, one of the great world travelers, I think he sums it well. He says, I guess everything's changed now. I mean, your knowledge on cards and points and special bonus, it's tons are going to change. Things are going to go away. Things are going to appear. It's fast moving. If you like the subject, I guess it's a interesting way to while away the time, but it is things we've taken for granted certainly are not going to be there, and other stuff may open. I think when I've heard about how essentially what no living Australian financial planners and investors have dealt with a recession in their country's market, because they've had these bull markets for like 20 or something years running, that the working career of many of these people, they've never had to go with a downturn. And I feel like the loyalty program managers of today, none of them have had to deal with a downturn. It's not generally a full 30, 40-year career. It's a few years on the marketing rung. And so even the longest serving people have been around since maybe 2015, 16, and have been entirely in the mode of, instead of becoming revenue centers at their companies and not just begging revenue management to release some award seats, not being a loss center, being a profit center, milking customers for whatever they're willing to pay for extra add-ons. And suddenly now they don't have the full planes, the money rushing in, and they have to, for the first time in their career in this area, have to reconfigure things and go back to lessons of 15, 20 years ago.
Well, I remember, when Delta went to the revenue program, where you had the revenue component, and people were saying, on Flyer Talk and other places, just wait, I'm not going to be loyal to them anymore, but just wait until the next recession.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see.
Right? And now it's going to be interesting to see.
Aaron's a Delta hub captive, right?
But now it's interesting to see
Chicago. I have no captive, that's for sure.
But you fly down. You're willing to fly down to Chicago.
Oh yeah. I'm willing to fly to LA to get a cheap fare to Europe. Are you kidding? Come on.
How much are fares? How much are you typically saving when you're going down to Chicago to start your trips, rather than start from Minneapolis, just like as a percent, adding in the cost of getting to Chicago?
So usually I think of Chicago as $150 round trip, right? Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. And I do play the status game on Delta because I travel for business. So the dream of having a domestic upgrade clear every once in a while on Wednesday at noon is very appealing to me. And so
but now you don't have to worry anymore. So
now, exactly, if you're on a revenue ticket, they'll probably clear you. But so generally, I try to I will go to Chicago if it's going to be $150 savings. The thing about Chicago is that there are so many airlines out of Chicago. It's a market that I don't think the airlines make money in, and especially for Asia fares, you're not going to get those fares anywhere close out of Minneapolis. I mean, you might get a $400 crazy fare deal out of Chicago, and Minneapolis flights will be $1,200. So
that's when I look anytime for flights for my parents, I've got that dilemma. And I've got it a little bit in Seattle, but I have such a quick, I can drive up to Vancouver where a lot of the fares are cheaper. I mean, Delta will sell, even out of Portland, they'll sell these cheap fares that are connecting through Seattle, but I'd have to drive down to Portland or up to Vancouver to pick these up. But I do have the driving option, which is Minneapolis to Chicago is a little bit far for that endeavor.
I only did Minneapolis, Amsterdam once, I think, or maybe twice. It was really good. It was a really good ex-Northwest crew. Really, really good. It was a really good flight.
Oh, pulling on the heartstrings.
Yeah, it was a really good. And
I have 3 Northwest guys on the call.
Mhm.
I was Northwest Platinum, great program.
Yeah, I still refer to it. When I still get Delta agents on the phone, I always have to bore them. You were so easy, I didn't even have to call you because the Northwest website 12 years ago did all this. And
Well, the thing with Delta agents, I always look for like the dropped Minnesota O, and then I ask them if they're in the Chisholm call center, and usually, it brings a smile to my face.
Are there any direct dial numbers that still work for Chisholm?
If there are, they are a closely guarded secret, and I do not know about them, or I would share them with you immediately.
Yeah, that's for those that are less familiar with calling airlines and that. It's those that do it a lot find out when, like what time of day or what number they can call to get connected to the right call centers. I think of Matthew Clint talking about Air Canada. Last year they had a lot of the program was outsourced, and now it's coming back in-house. It was an outside company, and it'd be really long hold times, difficult to get to agents. And he was like, well, this 1 hour a day is the overlap between the French-speaking agents in Montreal and the French-speaking agents in Vancouver. Their shifts overlapping, plus all the regular English-speaking agents wherever they all are. And this 1 hour a day was the time you could call Air Canada Aeroplan and get to an agent very quickly, especially if you selected French. And they were all actually bilingual. So if you don't speak French, it was no issue. You could just, I think it was like, what was it, like 3 to 4 p.m., but I forget what time zone, Eastern or Pacific, was like the one slot that you could really get through to somebody good. And they, of course, spoke both languages. I think we're going to draw it as a wrap. That's very late in London. Thank you, Michael, for joining.
Yeah, no, a pleasure. This was great fun.
Camera or is that a laptop? For nobody that's seen Minnesota, can they get a view out your window? Or is that going to out cords from your?
I mean, we can try, right? So this is. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty boring. Standard Minnesota.
You can see my TWA poster.
Parking lot.
Yeah. All right. Thank you both.
I'm an even bigger TWA fan than I am a Northwest fan. So.
All right. Thank you both for jumping in on the spur of the moment. We'll be back tomorrow. I've got a hardcore country collector guest that as a preview, he has his own radio show, so he should really be playing host. See you all back here tomorrow about the same time. Thank you.
Great.
Thanks. This is fun.
Bye-bye.